Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Knox Whitmore's office stood as a testament to precision. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping view of the city skyline, the morning sun glinting off neighboring skyscrapers like mathematical constants in his carefully ordered world. Every object on his desk served a purpose. Dual monitors displaying endless columns of financial data, a leather portfolio containing tomorrow's board meeting agenda, and a single-framed photograph of his daughter Alara. He paused his typing to study the photo. Alara at the observatory, her dark curls wild in the wind, eyes bright with wonder as she peered through the massive telescope. 9 years old and already more interested in the cosmos than social media, something that drove her mother crazy. His computer chimed with an incoming email. Another merger proposal requiring his analysis. As senior financial analyst at Meridian Capital, Knox's reputation for precision had made him indispensable. Numbers never lied, never played games. Unlike people, unlike his wife, the thought of Vivian made his jaw clench. This morning's interaction replayed in his mind. The Andersons are hosting a garden party this weekend, she'd announced over breakfast, not looking up from her phone. I told them we'd be there. I'm taking Alara to the Science Museum on Saturday. Vivian's perfectly manicured fingers had paused their scrolling. Again? Knox, she needs to socialize with children her own age. All this science stuff, it's not normal for a girl her age. Our daughter's interests aren't up for debate. He'd kept his voice level, aware of Alara listening from the next room. Make whatever excuses you need to the Andersons. God, you're impossible. Vivian had stood, her chair scraping against the floor. This is why we never get invited anywhere anymore. You and your rigid expectations. Knox had watched her storm out, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood like ammunition. Vivian Aldridge Whitmore, always dressed to kill, always performing for an audience that existed primarily in her own mind. Once, he'd found her theatrical nature charming. Now it just exhausted him that a knock at his office door interrupted his thoughts. His assistant, Michael, stepped in with a stack of reports. Quarterly projections for the Thompson account, Michael said, placing them carefully on the desk. And Mrs. Whitmore called. Asked me to remind you about dinner with the Hendersons tonight. Knox's expression didn't change, but his fingers tensed against the keyboard. What time did she call? About an hour ago. She seemed insistent. Of course she did. Another social obligation she'd committed them to without consulting him. Another evening of shallow conversations and strategic networking, while Alara sat with a babysitter. Thank you, Michael. That'll be all. Alone again, Knox pulled up his calendar. A dinner he'd been planning for weeks stared back at him. Observatory night with Alara Jupiter's moons visible. He'd already ordered a new telescope, more powerful than her current model. It sat in his trunk, wrapped and waiting. His phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. Working late again? The Hendersons invited us for dinner. That Knox's jaw clenched. The Hendersons, another couple in Viv's endless social circle, where appearances meant everything and substance nothing. He typed back, already made plans with Alara. The response came instantly. You and your astronomy obsession. She needs to socialize more. That he didn't bother responding. Instead, he opened his bottom drawer and pulled out a thick manila envelope. Inside, carefully organized documents told a story Vivian didn't know he'd been tracking. Credit card statements showing unexplained charges at bars and hotels. Phone records highlighting suspicious patterns. Bank withdrawals that didn't match their usual expenses. Knox had built his career on analyzing patterns. And lately, the patterns in his marriage pointed to something rotten at its core. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Whitmore, the board is ready for your presentation. On my way. He slipped the envelope back into its drawer. Later, he promised himself. For now, he had numbers to present, projections to defend. The familiar rhythm of financial analysis beckoned a world where everything added up, where discrepancies could be traced and corrected. The board meeting dragged into the afternoon. Knox delivered his findings with characteristic precision, fielding questions about market trends and risk assessments. But beneath his professional exterior, anticipation built. Today, he'd leave early. Today, he'd surprise Alara with the telescope and watch her face light up with that pure, uncomplicated joy that reminded him why he'd wanted to be a father in the first place. At 3 o'clock, he packed his briefcase. The drive home would take longer than usual. Friday traffic was always brutal, but it would be worth it to see Alara's reaction. Heading out early, Michael looked up from his desk, surprised. Family plans. Knox straightened his tie, a habit born of discipline rather than vanity. Hold my calls until Monday unless it's an emergency. The elevator ride to the parking garage gave him time to mentally shift gears. Work Knox with his spreadsheets and projections gave way to Dad Knox, the one who could name all of Jupiter's moons and explain why Pluto lost its planet status. The one person in their family who seemed to truly understand Alara, his Tesla waited in its assigned spot, the new telescope secure in its trunk. The drive home tested his patience. Every red light an obstacle. Every slow driver a personal affront to his plans. But finally, he turned onto their street, the first sign something was wrong. No lights in the windows. Their 3-story modern home, usually bright with Alara's after-school presence, stood dark against the afternoon sky. Knox parked in the driveway, unease creeping along his spine. The house key felt cold in his hand as he approached the front door. Alara. His voice echoed through the empty foyer. Princess, you home? Silence answered. He moved through the first floor methodically, each empty room ratcheting his concern higher. The kitchen stood pristine, unused. No backpack by the stairs. No shoes kicked off by the door. No sign of the everyday chaos that meant his daughter was home. Knox pulled out his phone, dialing Vivian. Straight to voicemail. Viv, where are you? In Alara. Call me back immediately. Next, he tried Alara's teacher, Mrs. Bennett. The call connected on the second ring. Mr. Whitmore? This is unexpected. Is Alara still at school? No, Mrs. Whitmore picked her up at the usual time. Is everything all right? Knox's grip tightened on the phone. Did she mention where they were going? No, I'm sorry. Should I be concerned? No, thank you. Just a miscommunication. He ended the call. Already scrolling through his contacts one by one, he called Vivian's friends. Amanda, who always knew the latest gossip. Rebecca, whose children sometimes had playdates with Alara. Sophie, who shared Vivian's passion for tennis and cocktail parties. Each call increased the knot in his stomach. Haven't seen her today. No, sorry, Knox. Is everything okay? By 7 o'clock, his controlled exterior began to crack. The new telescope sat forgotten in his trunk as he paced the house, phone pressed to his ear. Hospitals, police stations, even their family doctor did nothing. 18:09, he tried Vivian's phone again. Still straight to voicemail. His message this time was shorter, harder. Whatever game you're playing, it ends now. Where is our daughter? The house felt wrong without Alara's presence. No astronomy documentaries playing in the background. No excited chatter about space facts. Just emptiness and growing dread. The AT-11. His phone finally lit up with Vivian's number. Where the hell are you? Knox's voice emerged low and controlled, but trembling with barely suppressed rage. Don't take that tone with me. Vivian's voice came through hushed, defensive. Music and chatter filtered through the background, suggesting she was somewhere public. I left Alara with a friend. We just lost track of time. Knox's grip tightened on the phone until his knuckles whitened. Years of financial analysis had taught him to recognize when numbers didn't add up. Right now, nothing about the situation made sense. Which friend? A pause stretched between them. Too long to be innocent. Does it matter? She's fine. It matters. Each word came out precisely measured, like coordinates plotting a course to disaster. Where is our daughter, Vivian? You're overreacting. I'll bring her home. Where is she? I don't have to answer to you. You're not my keeper. The line went dead. Knox stared at the phone, his hands shaking with an emotion he rarely allowed himself to feel. Pure, undiluted rage. Something was very, very wrong. Vivian was manipulative, self-centered, but this was different. The tremor in her voice, the evasiveness about Alara's location. His mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last that he tried calling back. Straight to voicemail. Again, the house seemed to close in around him. Every empty room an accusation. The new telescope sat in his trunk, its promise of shared wonder now a mockery. He moved to Alara's bedroom, taking in the details that made it uniquely hers. Glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, carefully arranged in accurate constellations. A bookshelf where A Brief History of Time sat next to Harry Potter. Her first telescope, a birthday gift from last year, pointed out the window toward Jupiter's current position in the night sky. His daughter was out there somewhere, with someone Vivian wouldn't even name. That Knox's finger hovered over the emergency call button. Would the police take this seriously? Alara was with her mother, after all. But instinct, the same instinct that had built his career on spotting financial irregularities, screamed that something was deeply wrong, that he dialed 911. 911. What's your emergency? Knox switched to his boardroom voice. Clear, authoritative, brooking no argument. My wife has taken our 9-year-old daughter somewhere, and won't tell me where. She's not answering calls now. He provided the details methodically. Alara's age, description, what she'd worn to school. Vivian's information. Their address. The dispatcher's voice was professional, if hesitant. Given that it's her mother, we'll need to establish clear risk before. My wife left our 9-year-old daughter with an unnamed friend and won't disclose the location. Knox's voice could have frozen mercury. She's now unreachable. I want my daughter found. Now. Something in his tone must have conveyed the gravity of the situation. Within 30 minutes, 2 officers arrived at the house. Officer Martinez, a veteran with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, took point while her partner, Officer Chun, began the technical work of tracking Vivian's phone. Walk me through the day, Martinez prompted, notepad ready. When did you last see them? Knox recounted the morning's events, his memory for detail serving him well. The breakfast argument, Vivian's calls about the Hendersons, his early departure from work, and this is unusual behavior for your wife. He started to say no, then stopped. There had been changes, small things he'd dismissed in recent months, too focused on work and Alara to fully process. Late nights explained away as girls' nights out. New clothes that seemed cheaper, flashier than her usual taste. Unexplained charges at bars he knew she'd never frequent. A new perfume that made him recoil. Something cheap and cloying. Nothing like her usual subtle choices. She's been different. Knox chose his words carefully. More secretive. Our marriage isn't what it was. Martinez nodded, unsurprised. How long has this change been happening? 3 months, maybe 4. Knox's analytical mind kicked in, assembling a timeline. It started gradual. More nights out. New friends she wouldn't introduce me to. Charges on our credit cards from places she'd normally avoid. Mr. Whitmore. Martinez's voice gentled slightly. In your gut, what do you think is happening here? Knox met her eyes. I think my wife is having an affair, and I think she's dragged our daughter into whatever mess she's created. The officer didn't look shocked. Instead, she turned to her partner. Chun, what do we have on the phone trace? Officer Chun looked up from his laptop. Signals active. Getting coordinates now. His fingers flew over the keyboard. Got it. Green Pine Motel, about 20 miles outside town. Knox's stomach lurched. The Green Pine Motel, he'd driven past it on business trips. A decrepit place where the neon flickered and the parking lot collected broken bottles like seashells on a beach. My daughter is there. His voice sounded strange in his own ears. Martinez was already on a radio, calling for backup. Mr. Whitmore, we'll need you to stay here. I'm coming. It wasn't a request. That's my daughter. Something in his face must have convinced her. Fine, but you stay in the car until we clear the scene. Deal? Knox nodded, already moving toward the door. The drive felt endless, even with police escorts clearing traffic. His mind conjured images of the motel from his past drives. Peeling paint, suspicious stains, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour. What was Vivian thinking? What could possibly justify taking their daughter there? The motel's neon sign buzzed and sputtered as they pulled in, casting sickly pink light across 4 police cruisers. Knox sat in the back of Martinez's car, every muscle tense as officers positioned themselves around room 115. Martinez approached the door, hand on her weapon. Police! Open up! Silence stretched for 3 eternal seconds. Then, a small voice that made Knox's heart stop. Daddy? Alara! He was out of the car before conscious thought, Martinez's warning shout barely registering. "Baby, are you okay?" The door's locked. Her voice trembled. "I want to go home." Martinez didn't hesitate. One solid kick, and the door flew open. The motel room's stench hit Knox first. Stale cigarettes, spilled liquor, and something worse, something chemical that made his throat close. But all that faded when he saw Alara, curled up on a stained mattress, still in her school uniform. Her dark curls were tangled, her face tear-streaked, but she was alive. "Whole? Daddy." She flew into his arms with such force he staggered back a step. Her small body trembled against his chest, and he could feel her heart racing like a trapped bird. "I've got you, princess. I've got you." He held her tight, breathing in her familiar scent beneath the motel's foul air. His mind cataloged every detail of the room with cold precision. Empty beer cans scattered across the floor, cigarette burns in the carpet, a small bag of white powder hastily shoved under the bed. Officer Martinez was already documenting the scene, her partner calling for forensics. "Mr. Whitmore, we need to ask Alara some questions. Is that okay?" Knox nodded, but didn't loosen his hold. "I'm staying with her." "Of course." Martinez knelt to Alara's eye level, her voice gentle. "Hey there, sweetheart. Can you tell me what happened today?" Alara turned her face from Knox's shoulder, but kept her arms locked around his neck. "Mom picked me up from school. She said we were going to meet her friend, but then she brought me here. She said to wait with Royce." "Royce?" Knox's voice came out harder than he intended. "Mom's friend. He watches TV and drinks a lot." Alara's voice dropped to a whisper. "I told him I wanted to call you, but he said no. He said Mom would be mad." Martinez exchanged looks with her partner. "Can you describe Royce for me?" "He's big, has tattoos on his arms. His nose looks funny, like it got broken." Alara's grip on Knox tightened. "He kept talking on the phone and getting angry. Then he left and said he'd be back." "Did he hurt you?" Knox had to force the words past the rage building in his throat. "No, he just ignored me mostly. But I was scared." Her voice cracked. "I wanted to go home, but he wouldn't let me leave." Officer Chin was already on his radio, description flowing. Suspect is male, early 30s, muscular build, tattooed, probable broken nose. Last seen driving a red Mustang. License plate visible in parking lot footage. Knox's mind raced. Who was this man? What kind of mother left her child with a stranger in a place like this? His eyes fell on a receipt near the TV bar tabs, betting slips. The name caught his attention. Royce Kincaid. Martinez. He nodded toward the paper. Might help identify him. The officer bagged the receipt as evidence, then spoke into her radio. A moment later, her face hardened. Royce Kincaid. Former boxer. Multiple arrests for drunk and disorderly. Current employment. Promoter at the Red Line nightclub. A boxer. A drunk. A man with a criminal record. This was who Vivian had chosen to watch their daughter. "Daddy." Alara's voice was small. "Can we go home now?" "Soon, princess. The police need to finish their work first." He sat on the room's single chair, keeping her in his lap. "Want to tell me about school today? Did you finish that science project?" He kept her talking about normal things, classes, friends, the upcoming solar eclipse while the police processed the scene. Anything to keep her mind off where they were, what had happened. But his own mind was already several steps ahead. Planning what would come next, they found Royce 2 hours later, stumbling out of his own nightclub 6 blocks from the motel. Even drunk and high, he proved why his boxing career had once shown promise. It took 3 officers to subdue him, and even then he kept swinging. Knox watched from behind the police line as they loaded him into a cruiser. Royce Kincaid looked exactly as Alara had described. Muscular, tattooed, nose twisted from too many fights. The kind of man who solved problems with his fists rather than words. Blood trickled from a fresh cut above his eye, a souvenir from his resistance. "Your wife's friend?" Martinez asked quietly. "Never seen him before today." Knox's voice was arctic. "But I will remember his face." Alara had fallen asleep in the back of Martinez's car, emotionally exhausted. Knox stood guard outside the door, unwilling to let her out of his sight again. That's where he was when Vivian finally arrived. She burst into the motel parking lot in her Mercedes, designer dress, and perfect makeup, incongruous against the seedy backdrop. Her heels clicked rapidly across the cracked asphalt as she ran toward them. "Alara, baby!" She reached for the car door, but Knox stepped between them, a wall of cold fury. "Don't you dare touch her. She's my daughter." Vivian's voice rose hysterically, drawing attention from the officers processing the scene. "I wasn't going to leave her there long. You left her with a drug addict in a motel room." Knox's voice carried across the parking lot, making her flinch. Each word fell like an executioner's axe. "What kind of mother does that? Royce isn't, he wouldn't." She ran her fingers through her hair, smearing her perfect makeup. "You don't understand. He's not what you think." "Mrs. Whitmore," Officer Martinez interrupted firmly. "We found cocaine in the room. Your friend Mr. Kincaid is being charged with child endangerment, possession of controlled substances, and resisting arrest. We need your statement." The color drained from Vivian's face. For the first time in their marriage, Knox saw her perfectly constructed facade crumble completely. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. "I want my lawyer." "Good idea." Knox's voice could have frosted hell. "You'll need one." He turned his back on her, focusing entirely on Alara's sleeping form. In the distance, he could hear Vivian's voice rising, explaining, justifying, manipulating. But her powers of persuasion had finally met their match. No amount of charm could explain away what she'd done. The new telescope still sat in his trunk, its promise of shared wonder now overshadowed by this nightmare. But as he watched his daughter sleep, Knox made a silent promise. There would be other nights for stargazing, other chances to explore the cosmos together, but first he would make sure nothing like this ever happened again. The drive home stretched through the darkest hours of the night, city lights blurring past like distant stars. Knox watched Alara through the rearview mirror, her small form curled up in the back seat, finally peaceful in exhausted sleep. Officer Martinez had insisted on escorting them home, standard procedure, she'd said, but Knox recognized the protective instinct in her eyes. His mind replayed the final moments at the motel, each detail etching itself into his memory with crystalline clarity. Vivian's mascara-streaked face, as she realized the magnitude of what she'd done. The flash of police cameras documenting the scene. The way Royce had spat blood on the pavement as they loaded him into the police car. His eyes promising violence, the house stood silent when they arrived, its pristine facade masking the trauma of the night. Knox carried Alara inside, her head heavy on his shoulder. She stirred only slightly as he laid her in her bed, still fully dressed. "Daddy?" Her voice was thick with sleep. "Don't leave. Never." He pulled up a reading chair and settled in for the night. "I'm right here, princess." Once she drifted off again, Knox pulled out his phone. His fingers moved with practiced efficiency through his contacts until he found the number he needed. Harrison Walsh, the most ruthless family attorney in the state. The one other lawyers feared facing in court. The message was brief. "Emergency custody situation. Need to meet first thing tomorrow. We'll pay whatever it takes." The response came within minutes. 7 a.m. My office. Knox leaned back in the chair, watching the glow-in-the-dark stars on Alara's ceiling. The constellations they'd mapped together cast their faint light down, a reminder of simpler times. His daughter had insisted on astronomical accuracy. Orion's belt had to be exactly right, the Big Dipper properly aligned. That attention to detail, that passion for precision, she got that from him. His phone buzzed again. "Vivian, please, we need to talk about this." "Let me explain." Another buzzed out. "You're overreacting. Royce isn't what you think." And another that "Don't do anything rash. Think about Alara." That Knox's jaw tightened. He was thinking about Alara. Had been thinking about her during every second of this nightmare. That's why there would be no discussion, no explanation, no second chances. That he typed back a single message. "All communication goes through my lawyer from now on." Then he blocked her number. The night crept by slowly. Knox used the time productively, making notes on his phone, building a timeline. Every suspicious charge on their credit cards. Every unexplained absence. Every time Vivian had prioritized her social life over Alara's well-being. The evidence mounted, digital breadcrumbs leading to tonight's disaster. The AT dawn. Alara stirred. For a moment, confusion clouded her face as she registered her wrinkled school uniform. Then memory returned, and her lower lip trembled. It wasn't a bad dream, was it? Knox moved to sit on the edge of her bed. No, princess, it wasn't. But you're safe now. That's what matters. She nodded, trying to be brave. Is Mom coming home? No. Knox kept his voice gentle, but firm. Some things happened that weren't okay. Your mom made choices that put you in danger. Until we figure everything out, she won't be staying here. Because of Royce? Partly. Knox chose his words carefully. Adults are supposed to protect children, not leave them with strangers. What your mom did was wrong. Very wrong. Alara processed this, her brow furrowed in thought. She's been different lately. Sadder maybe. Or angrier. I don't know. That's not your burden to carry. Knox pulled her close. How about we get you cleaned up? Then we can make chocolate chip pancakes, the real ones, not those whole wheat ones your mom insists on. A small smile. With whipped cream? Extra whipped cream? While Alara showered, Knox made necessary calls. First to his office, arranging indefinite leave. Then to Alara's school, explaining she'd need a few days off. Finally, to the child psychologist Martinez had recommended Dr. Lauren Taylor, specialized in trauma and family crisis counseling, that he was flipping pancakes when his phone buzzed with an email from Harrison Walsh's office. Preliminary custody paperwork attached for review. The subject line was simple but powerful. Emergency ex parte order of protection. Knox scanned the documents while Alara ate, his lawyer's strategic mind already evident in the carefully worded allegations. Child endangerment, reckless endangerment, exposure to criminal activity. Each charge built upon the last, creating an ironclad case for immediate, exclusive custody. Dad! Alara's voice pulled him from the legal terms. Can we still go to the observatory sometime? Something in Knox's chest tightened. The new telescope still sat in his trunk, a reminder of how quickly life could derail. Of course we can. Maybe not today, but soon. The stars aren't going anywhere. She nodded, pushing syrup around her plate. Will you have to work late again? No. The answer came without hesitation. I'm taking some time off. You and me, we're going to figure this out together. What about Mom? Knox set down his phone, giving his daughter his full attention. Your mom made some bad choices. Choices that put you in danger. There will be consequences for that. But you don't need to worry about any of it. My job is to protect you. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Like the shield nebula protects the stars inside it. A smile tugged at his lips. Trust his daughter to find an astronomical metaphor. Exactly like that. After breakfast, while Alara got dressed, Knox retrieved the telescope from his car. The glossy wrapping paper seemed out of place now, too festive for the morning after such darkness. But when Alara came downstairs and saw it, her eyes lit up with that pure joy he'd been waiting for. Is that? Open it. Her careful unwrapping revealed the professional-grade telescope, its lens promising views of distant worlds. She ran her fingers over the smooth metal, already calculating optimal viewing angles. Can we set it up now? Tonight, Knox promised. First, we have some grown-up things to take care of. But tonight, we'll look at Jupiter's moons, just like we planned. Because that's what mattered, keeping promises, maintaining routines, showing her that some things remained constant even when others fell apart. Knox would build her a new normal, one that didn't include motel rooms and strangers, one where she felt safe and valued and understood. That AS for Vivian. Knox's jaw set as he thought of the manila envelope in his office drawer, now supplemented by police reports and witness statements. She had declared war on their family with her reckless choices. Soon she would learn exactly what happened when someone threatened what Knox Whitmore held dear. He'd built his career on precision and control. Now he would use those same skills to dismantle her world, piece by careful piece. There would be no forgiveness, no reconciliation, no second chances, only consequences, and they would be astronomical. Harrison Walsh's office occupied the entire top floor of a downtown high-rise, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the city Knox barely noticed. His attention focused entirely on the laptop Detective Martinez had brought, its screen currently dark but promising revelations he wasn't sure he was ready to face. The tech team recovered this from Royce Kincaid's laptop, Martinez explained, her voice professional but gentle. Mr. Whitmore, you should know what's on here. It's going to be difficult to watch. Knox straightened his tie, a habitual gesture that helped him maintain control. "Show me." "We don't technically need you to view this," Harrison Walsh interjected from behind his massive mahogany desk. The attorney's reputation for ruthlessness was belied by his grandfatherly appearance, but his eyes were sharp as surgical steel. "The evidence is admissible either way. Play it." Knox's voice left no room for discussion. Martinez nodded and pressed play. The video quality was crisp, high definition. Too clear. Knox recognized the master bedroom immediately, his bedroom, where he and Vivian had once shared a life. The timestamp showed a date from 3 weeks ago. Middle of the afternoon, his wife appeared first, giggling like a teenager as she led Royce into frame. The former boxer's tattoos stood out starkly against their cream-colored bedding. "You sure hubby won't be home early?" Royce's voice was rough, slurred slightly. "Already drunk at 2 in the afternoon." Vivian's laugh turned cruel. "Knox, please." He's so buried in his spreadsheets he wouldn't notice if the house burned down. "Their marriage counselor's going to love this," Walsh muttered. Making notes, Knox held up a hand for silence, his face a mask of control as he watched his wife and her lover defile his bed. Their bed. The bed where he'd read bedtime stories to Alara during thunderstorms. The video played on, revealing not just the physical betrayal but something worse. The casual cruelty of their conversation between acts. "God, he's so boring," Vivian complained, lighting a cigarette in their bedroom, where she'd always forbidden smoking. "All he talks about is work and Alara's stupid space obsession." Royce pulled her close, rough and possessive. "You deserve better, baby. Someone who knows how to handle a real woman. Someone like you." She traced one of his tattoos. "A real man who isn't afraid to take what he wants?" "Damn right." Royce's grin turned predatory. "Speaking of taking what I want," Knox reached out and closed the laptop, his movement precise and controlled. The room fell silent, except for the soft whir of Walsh's desktop computer fan. "There's more," Martinez said quietly. "About 20 similar videos, spread over the past 3 months. Different days, different encounters. All in your house," Walsh added, his pen scratching against his legal pad. "All during hours when she was supposed to be watching your daughter." Knox's voice emerged surprisingly steady. "Where was Alara during these meetings?" Martinez consulted her notes. "Based on the timestamps in our interviews, usually at friends' houses with various babysitters, or," she hesitated, "or what?" "Sometimes in the house. Downstairs. Told to watch TV or do homework and not disturb her mother." The pen in Knox's hand snapped, blue ink staining his fingers like evidence of violence narrowly avoided. Walsh silently passed him a handkerchief. "Mr. Whitmore." The attorney's voice carried the weight of decades of family law experience. "This, combined with the motel incident, gives us everything we need. But there's something else you should know." He pulled a document from a folder, sliding it across the desk. Knox recognized it immediately. The post-nuptial agreement Vivian had signed 3 years ago, during a period when their marriage had first shown cracks. Section 7, Paragraph 3, Walsh directed. Knox read aloud, his financial analyst's precision giving weight to each word. "In the event of infidelity by either party, proven by incontrovertible evidence, the offending party forfeits all claims to shared assets and property. Furthermore, full custody of any minor children shall default to the wrong party, with visitation rights subject to their sole discretion." "The betrayal clause," Walsh said with grim satisfaction. "Your idea, as I recall." Vivian signed it without even reading it carefully, said she'd never need to worry about it. She certainly didn't worry about it 3 weeks ago. Knox's voice could have frozen hell. "Or any other time she brought that man into my home." A knock at the door interrupted them. Walsh's secretary entered with a fresh pot of coffee and an update. "Sir, Mrs. Whitmore's attorney just called. They're requesting a meeting to discuss terms." "Already?" Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Word travels fast." "No." Knox stood, straightening his suit jacket. "No meetings. No terms. No negotiations." Walsh's smile showed teeth. "Shall I draft the filing for immediate emergency custody?" "Do it." "And Harrison?" Knox paused at the door. "Make it hurt." Martinez followed him into the hallway. "Mr. Whitmore, there's one more thing you should know. The drug residue, we found in the motel room? It matches samples from your master bathroom. This wasn't just a one-time thing with Kincaid. Knox absorbed this final betrayal with deadly calm. Detective, when this goes to court, and it will go to court, I want you there. I want the judge to hear every detail, every sordid fact. No mercy. Of course. She hesitated. How's Alara holding up? She's with Dr. Taylor now. Child psychologist, he explained. Starting to process everything. And you? How are you processing it? Knox's smile held no warmth. I'm doing what I do best, detective. I'm analyzing the data and preparing an appropriate response. He stepped into the elevator, his reflection in the polished doors showing a man unchanged on the surface. Inside, though, calculations ran like code through a supercomputer. Every betrayal, every lie, every moment Vivian had put their daughter at risk. They were all variables in an equation that would end with his wife's complete destruction. The doors closed on Martinez's concerned face, leaving Knox alone with his thoughts and the damning images from the video playing behind his eyes. He pulled out his phone, dialing his office. Michael, I need you to pull every financial record we have for the past 6 months. Joint accounts, credit cards, everything. And Michael, pay special attention to any transactions at or near the Red Lion nightclub. Because if Vivian thought the videos were devastating, she had no idea what a financial analyst could do with 6 months of bank records and a motivation for revenge. The game was changing, and Knox intended to rewrite all the rules. Knox sat in his home office, surrounded by financial statements spread across his desk like battle plans. His laptop displayed transaction records from the Red Lion nightclub, a digital trail of Vivian's indiscretions. Every charge told a story. Expensive bottles of champagne, late-night room rentals, cash withdrawals at precise intervals. The doorbell rang. Right on time, Duddy found Vivian on the doorstep, her designer outfit and perfect makeup a stark contrast to her red-rimmed eyes. She tried to step inside, but Knox blocked the entrance. You don't live here anymore. Knox, please. Her voice cracked. I've been trying to reach you for days. Where's Alara? I need to see her. You lost that right when you left her with your drug-addicted boyfriend. Royce isn't. She caught herself switching tactics. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But she's my daughter, too. Was she your daughter when you were upstairs with him? Knox's voice could have cut diamond. When she was downstairs doing homework, told not to disturb Mommy's special friend? Vivian's face went pale. What are you talking about? Come into my office. There's something you need to see. He led her to his desk, pulled up one of the videos. Watched her face as she recognized herself, her lover, their bed. The timestamp in the corner damning her twice over. Turn it off. Her whisper was barely audible. Why? This is what you wanted, isn't it? To be desired? To feel alive? His words dripped acid. To have a real man who wasn't boring? You had me followed. No need. Your boyfriend recorded everything himself. Quite the amateur filmmaker, you're Royce. Vivian sank into a chair, her composure cracking. Knox, I can explain. Explain what? He turned his laptop screen to show a spreadsheet. The drugs in our bathroom? The money you've been stealing from our accounts? Or how about explaining this? He pointed to a particular transaction. $5,000 withdrawn the day before the motel incident. Payment for services rendered? It's not what you think. Then enlighten me? He leaned back, his pose deceptively casual. Explain why my wife turned our home into a drug den and filming location. Explain why my daughter was left with a violent criminal. I'm fascinated to hear the rationalization. I was lonely. Tears streaked her makeup. You were always working, always focused on Alara. Don't you dare. Knox's voice turned to Arctic wind. Don't you dare use our daughter as an excuse for your depravity. What do you want from me? Vivian's voice rose hysterically. An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. Is that what you need to hear? Knox pulled out the post-nuptial agreement. What I need is your signature accepting the terms we agreed to 3 years ago. The betrayal clause, remember? The one you said you'd never have to worry about? She stared at the document, realization dawning. You can't be serious. You'd leave me with nothing. Nothing. He stood slowly. You left our 9-year-old daughter with a cocaine-addicted ex-boxer in a motel room. You brought strange men into our home while she was here. You exposed her to drugs, to danger, to God knows what else. And you're worried about money? I'll fight you. Her chin lifted defiantly. I'll tell everyone what a cold, controlling husband you were. How you drove me to this. Knox smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Fight all you want. The videos go to the judge first, then your parents, then the board of your precious charity foundation. How long do you think you'll keep your position as chair of the Children's Hospital Fundraising Committee once this gets out? You wouldn't dare. Try me? He slid the document closer. Sign, and the videos stay private. Fight me, and I'll burn your world to ash. I want to see Alara. No, she's my daughter, and I'm her father. Knox's voice turned frighteningly soft. The father who spent every day of her life protecting her, nurturing her interests, being there. While you were spreading your legs for a washed-up boxer in our bed, I was teaching her about the stars. While you were getting high in our bathroom, I was helping with her science projects. So no, Vivian, you don't get to see her. You don't get to hurt her anymore. Vivian stood, trembling with rage. My lawyer will be in touch. Good. I look forward to playing the videos in court. I especially enjoyed the part where you mocked our daughter's stupid space obsession. The judge will love that. She stormed toward the door, then paused. I did love you once, Knox. No. His voice was empty of emotion. You loved what I could give you. Status, security, respectability. But you never loved me. And you certainly never loved our daughter. After she left, Knox sat at his desk, staring at the family photo from happier times. His phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Taylor. Alara had a good session today. Asking about astronomy camp this summer, that a small smile touched his lips. Yes, astronomy camp would be perfect. A chance for her to be with other kids who shared her passion. Far away from the coming legal battle, his office phone rang. Harrison Walsh, they filed for emergency mediation, the lawyer reported, claiming you're alienating the child from her mother. Knox's laugh held no humor. Perfect. Time to show the judge our evidence. All of it. It'll get ugly. It already is. Knox's voice hardened. But I'm done playing nice. Release everything. The videos, the bank records, the drug evidence. Let's see how her lawyer handles that. And the post-nuptial agreement? She had her chance to sign quietly. Now we do this the hard way. He ended the call and turned to his window. The city spread out below, lights twinkling like distant stars. Somewhere out there, Vivian was probably crying to her lawyers, playing the victim. Let her. He had truth on his side, documented in high definition and bank statements. The game was changing, but Knox had always been better at strategy than his wife. She played checkers, thinking a few moves ahead. He played chess, seeing the entire board, and he was ready to call checkmate. The family court's marble halls echoed with footsteps as Knox straightened his tie, watching Vivian and her legal team huddle at the far end of the corridor. She dressed for sympathy, subtle makeup, conservative navy suit, pearl necklace. The picture of a grieving mother fighting for her child, Harrison Walsh, appeared at his elbow, manila envelope in hand. Ready? Is Detective Martinez here? Front row, with the evidence laptop. Walsh's eyes gleamed. Their lawyer tried to suppress the videos. Judge Kendrick denied the motion 10 minutes ago. Of course he did. Knox's voice was cold. Hard to claim privacy rights on evidence of child endangerment. The bailiff called them in a courtroom 3. Knox took his seat beside Walsh, noting how Vivian's lawyer, Thomas Reynolds, known for handling wealthy wives and divorce cases, leaned over to whisper in her ear. Whatever he said made her pale. Judge Marcus Kendrick, a man whose reputation for protecting children bordered on legendary, studied both parties over his reading glasses. Before we begin, his voice filled the courtroom. I want to be clear. This is not a typical custody dispute. The allegations here, child endangerment, drug use, criminal association, make this a matter of immediate concern. Mr. Reynolds, your motion for gradual transition of custody is denied. We're here to determine if Mrs. Whitmore represents an active threat to her child's well-being. Reynolds stood, adjusting his expensive tie. Your Honor, my client acknowledges a serious lapse in judgment regarding the motel incident. However, one mistake shouldn't erase 9 years of dedicated motherhood. Objection. Walsh's voice cracked like a whip. Counsel is characterizing evidence he hasn't seen. We're prepared to demonstrate a pattern of endangerment spanning months. Proceed, Mr. Walsh. Judge Kendrick nodded. Detective Martinez connected the laptop to the courtroom's display system. The first video began to play. Vivian's gasp echoed through the room as she watched herself lead Royce into the master bedroom. Her recorded voice filled the space. Knox is so buried in his spreadsheets, he wouldn't notice if the house burned down. Stop! Reynolds jumped up. Your Honor, these private moments aren't relevant. The relevance, Walsh interrupted, is established by the timestamp. This video was recorded at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Mrs. Whitmore was supposed to be picking up her daughter from school at 3:15. Instead, she was engaging in sexual activities with a known criminal while under the influence of cocaine, which was found in the master bathroom. The judge's face hardened. Continue the evidence, detective. More videos played. More timestamps. More damning conversations. The brat's downstairs doing homework. Royce's voice growled in one clip. She better not interrupt us again. She won't. Vivian's recorded laugh was cruel. I told her mommy's having important grown-up time. She's so much like her father, follows rules like a robot. Knox's hands clenched under the table, but his face remained impassive. Your Honor, Walsh stood. The videos demonstrate an ongoing pattern of neglect and endangerment. Mrs. Whitmore regularly exposed her daughter to criminal elements, prioritized her affair over parental duties, and created an environment where drug use and inappropriate sexual activity occurred with a minor present in the home. Reynolds attempted damage control. My client admits to poor judgment, but maintains that her relationship with Mr. Kincaid never directly endangered. Poor judgment? Knox's voice cut through the legal jargon. She left our daughter with a cocaine-addicted criminal in a motel room, a man who had multiple domestic violence charges. A man who recorded himself having sex with my wife in our home while our daughter was present. That's not poor judgment. That's criminal negligence. Mr. Whitmore, Judge Kendrick warned, please address the court through your counsel. Your Honor, Walsh smoothly took over. We have additional evidence. Detective Martinez recovered text messages between Mrs. Whitmore and Mr. Kincaid discussing payment for drugs, coordinating encounters while the child was home, and explicitly planning the motel incident. Vivian stood suddenly. I want to speak. Mrs. Whitmore, Reynolds hissed. I advise against. No. She faced the judge. I need to explain. Knox was always working, always focused on Alara's science projects and astronomy lessons. I felt invisible. Royce made me feel alive, desired. Yes, I made mistakes, but I love my daughter. I deserve another chance. Another chance? Knox's voice could have frozen fire. You brought a violent criminal into our home. You chose drugs and sex over our daughter's safety. You mocked her interests and left her alone with strangers. What kind of mother does that? Order. Judge Kendrick's gavel cracked. Mrs. Whitmore, your feelings of neglect, while unfortunate, do not justify endangering a child. Mr. Walsh, you mentioned a post-nuptial agreement? Yes, Your Honor. Walsh presented the document. Section 7, Paragraph 3, the Betrayal Clause. Mrs. Whitmore signed this 3 years ago, acknowledging that proven infidelity would result in forfeiture of all claims to shared assets and full custody, reverting to the wrong party. Reynolds jumped up. Your Honor, that clause is punitive and unreasonable. That clause, Walsh countered, was signed willingly by a competent adult who, I quote from the evidence videos, never thought she'd have to worry about it. The law is clear on post-nuptial agreements in this state. The judge studied the document, then the evidence files, then Vivian's tear-streaked face. I've seen enough. His voice was heavy with finality. Based on the overwhelming evidence of endangerment, criminal association, and the legally binding post-nuptial agreement, I'm granting immediate full custody to Mr. Whitmore. Mrs. Whitmore, your visitation rights will be at Mr. Whitmore's discretion, supervised only, and contingent upon completion of drug counseling and parenting classes. No! Vivian's cry echoed off the marble walls. You can't do this. Knox, please, she's my baby too. Knox stood straightening his suit jacket. His voice carried clearly through the courtroom. She stopped being your baby the moment you chose him over her safety. Live with it. He turned and walked out, leaving Vivian's sobs behind him. In the hallway, Detective Martinez waited. "That was brutal," she said quietly. "It was necessary." Knox checked his watch. "Alara's astronomy class ends in an hour. I promised to help her map Jupiter's moons tonight, because that's what mattered now. Keeping promises, maintaining routines, building a new life free from Vivian's chaos." The courtroom battle was won, but Knox's war would continue until his daughter was completely safe, completely protected. There would be no mercy, no reconciliation, no second chances, only consequences, and they were just beginning. The headlines spread through the city's social circles like wildfire. Each one a precision-guided strike against Vivian's carefully constructed world. Local socialite loses custody amid drug scandal. Children's Hospital Board member filmed with felon Whitmore divorce rocks cities. Enoch scrolled through the morning news on his tablet, watching his ex-wife's downfall play out in real time. He hadn't leaked the videos. He wasn't that cruel, but the court documents were public record. In the age of social media, that was more than enough to destroy a reputation built on lies. His office phone buzzed. "Mr. Whitmore? Mrs. Henderson from the Children's Hospital Foundation is here to see you. Send her in." Patricia Henderson entered, her usual confident stride diminished. Knox remembered how she'd always sided with Vivian at charity events, treating him like an ATM with legs. "Knox." She smoothed her designer skirt, clearly uncomfortable. "This is awkward." "Is it?" He didn't offer her a seat. The foundation board met this morning. About Vivian's position. She cleared her throat. "Given the circumstances, the drugs, the videos, that awful business with the motel, we felt it best to request her resignation. I assumed she didn't take that well. She accused us of betrayal, said we were abandoning her when she needed support." Patricia's face tightened. Then she threatened to expose everyone's secrets. Said she knew things that would destroy us all. Sounds like Vivian. "Knox, be reasonable. She's spiraling. Couldn't you?" "What?" His voice could have frozen flame. "Protect her from the consequences of her own actions?" Again, she's lost everything. Her position, her reputation, and whose fault is that? Knox turned his computer screen to show a bank statement. "Did you know she was using foundation funds to buy cocaine? Interesting expenses at the Red Lion nightclub, don't you think?" Patricia's face went pale. "She wouldn't. The evidence is quite clear. I've already forwarded it to the board's audit committee." He smiled without warmth. "I suggest you distance yourself quickly, Patricia. The splash zone for this scandal is about to get much wider." After she fled, his phone buzzed again. "Amanda, one of Vivian's oldest friends." "Knox? We need to talk about Viv." "No, we don't." He kept his voice level. "Whatever she's told you." "She's staying at my house," Amanda interrupted. "She's not doing well. The foundation asked her to resign. The country club suspended her membership. Nobody's returning her calls. And this concerns me how. God, Knox, show some mercy. She's lost everything." "No, Amanda. She threw everything away. There's a difference." He gazed out his office window at the city below. "She made her choices. Now she can live with them. She wants to see Alara, just for an hour." The court was clear. Supervised visits only, after completing drug counseling and parenting classes. "Has she started either?" Silence answered him. "That's what I thought." Knox's voice hardened. "Tell Vivian to stop using her friends as messengers. Any communication goes through our lawyers." He ended the call and checked his watch. Alara would be finishing her therapy session with Dr. Taylor soon. The nightmares about the motel had mostly stopped, but Knox insisted on maintaining the routine. His daughter's healing wasn't something he'd leave to chance. His intercom buzzed again. "Mr. Whitmore? There's a Mr. Kincaid asking to see you." Knox's jaw tightened. "Send him up." He stood as Royce entered, noting how prison had already begun to soften the ex-boxer's physique. No more designer clothes, just jeans and a worn leather jacket that had seen better days. "Nice office." Royce tried for his old swagger, but uncertainty bled through. "Real fancy. What do you want?" "Look, man, about the videos." Royce spread his hands placatingly. "That was messed up. I was high most of the time, wasn't thinking straight. You left my 9-year-old daughter alone in a motel room while you went drinking." Knox's voice could have frozen hell. "High or not, you made that choice. Viv said it would be fine. Said the kid was used to staying with friends. Her name is Alara. Knox stepped around his desk. And if you ever come near her again, what's left of your boxing career will be the least of your concerns. Hey, I'm trying to apologize here. Royce's face flushed. This a mess, man. Lost everything because of your revenge. My revenge? Knox laughed, the sound empty of humor. I simply showed the truth. In high definition, with timestamps. The consequences are all her own. She loves that kid. No. Knox's voice cut like a blade. She loved the idea of being a mother. The status it gave her. The social currency of school events and charity functions. But when it came to actually protecting her child, she chose drugs, sex, and a washed-up boxer instead. Royce's fist clenched. Watch your mouth. Or what? Knox stepped closer, completely calm. You'll hit me? Add assault charges to the drug possession and child endangerment. How's that working out for your parole hearing? The fight drained from Royce's posture. Just tell Viv I tried, okay? Tell her. I won't be telling her anything. Knox returned to his desk. Now get out of my office before I call security. And Royce. He looked up, eyes cold. If I ever see you near my daughter again, they won't find enough of you to fill a matchbox. After Royce left, Knox buzzed his assistant. Any other surprise visitors I should know about? No, sir. But Mrs. Whitmore's attorney called again about modifying the visitation schedule. Send them the same response. After she completes the court-ordered programs. He paused. And Lauren? Have security add Royce Kincaid to the ban list. Already done, sir. Knox turned to his window. From his office, he could see the park where Vivian used to host charity events. Now she wasn't welcome there. The social circle she'd ruled had closed ranks against her. Turning their backs on the scandal she represented, his phone buzzed again. Vivian's number, though he'd blocked it weeks ago. She must be using a different phone. The voicemail notification popped up seconds later, against his better judgment. He played it. Knox, please. Her voice was ragged, broken. I'm dying here. Nobody will talk to me. The foundation, my friends, even my parents are ashamed. I know I messed up, but this punishment is too much. Just let me see her. Please. I'll do anything. He deleted the message without replying. Let her feel the isolation, the shame. Let her understand exactly what she'd thrown away for a few cheap thrills with a drug-addicted boxer. The intercom buzzed again. Sir? Detective Martinez is here. Send her in. Detective Martinez entered Knox's office carrying a thick case file, her expression suggesting news he wouldn't like. Your ex-wife has been busy, she said, dropping the file on his desk. Thought you should see this before it hits the news. Knox opened the folder, scanning police reports from various precincts. Vivian's name appeared repeatedly. Drunk and disorderly, trespassing, harassment. She's spinning out, Martinez continued. Showing up at social events she's not invited to. Making scenes at restaurants. Last week, she tried to crash a foundation fundraiser, had to be escorted out. Not my problem anymore. It is when she's ranting about you, in Alara. Martinez leaned forward. She's telling anyone who'll listen that you manipulated the evidence. That the videos were doctored. That you paid off the judge. Knox's expression didn't change. Let her talk. The truth is already public record. There's more. Martinez pulled out another document. Kincaid's lawyer is pushing for a plea deal. In exchange for testimony about your wife's drug operations. This caught Knox's attention. Operations? Turns out she wasn't just buying. She was supplying using your joint accounts to fund a pretty significant cocaine distribution through the Red Line. Kincaid was just the middleman. Knox absorbed this with clinical detachment. Forward the details to Harrison Walsh. Might help with the Asset Division appeal she's filing. Already did. But Knox. Martinez hesitated. Most people would show some reaction. Anger, hurt, something. Would that change anything? Guess not. She placed a card on his desk. But if you ever need to talk, this therapist specializes in helping people through betrayal trauma. Knox didn't touch the card. The only therapy I need is watching Vivian lose everything she valued. Starting with her reputation and ending with her daughter. Speaking of Alara, how's she doing? His expression softened slightly. Better. The astronomy camp this summer helped. Being around other kids who share her interests away from all this mess. He gestured to his calendar. She's presenting her constellation project at the science fair next week. Ancient cultures, different interpretations of the same stars. Mind if I stop by? The department science program has something she might like. They headed downstairs to the house's observatory room, a converted sunroom now dedicated to Alara's astronomical pursuits. She was there with Dr. Taylor, her therapist, working on a detailed star chart. "And how did you feel when you saw the police at the motel?" Dr. Taylor asked gently. "Scared at first," Alara admitted, not looking up from her work. "But then I heard Dad's voice, and I knew everything would be okay. Dad always fixes things." Knox's chest tightened at her words. He cleared his throat, announcing their presence. "Detective Martinez." Alara's face brightened. "Did you come to see my project?" "Actually, I brought you something." Martinez pulled a small package from her jacket. From the department's science program. Alara unwrapped it carefully, revealing a meteorite fragment in a display case. Her eyes widened. "Is this real?" "Certified by the university. Not from the Perseids, but still pretty special." "Dad, look." Alara held up the case, sunlight glinting off the metallic surface. "Can we add it to my science shelf?" Knox nodded, watching his daughter's excitement. Dr. Taylor caught his eye, giving an approving smile. These moments of pure joy were becoming more frequent, the shadows of that night at the motel fading gradually. "Detective Martinez?" Alara's voice turned serious. "Is my mom still doing bad things?" The adults exchanged glances. Dr. Taylor had emphasized the importance of age-appropriate honesty in their sessions. Knox knelt beside his daughter. "Your mother is having a hard time accepting the consequences of her choices. But that's not something you need to worry about. Your job is to be 9, love science, and let me handle everything else. Like how you handle the judge." Alara's perception sometimes startled him. "I heard Mrs. Henderson telling her friend you destroyed Mom in court. Adults shouldn't gossip about such things around you." Knox made a mental note to have a word with Patricia Henderson. The judge simply looked at the facts and made the right decision. "To keep me safe?" "Exactly." Dr. Taylor interjected smoothly. "Alara, why don't you show Detective Martinez your constellation comparison? The one about different cultural interpretations?" As Alara launched into an enthusiastic explanation of how the Greeks saw Orion, while other cultures saw different patterns, Knox's phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Another voicemail from Vivian, that he stepped into the hallway to listen. "Your precious daughter misses me, you know. The other mothers at school tell me she asks about me. But you're too busy playing the perfect father to notice her pain. You think you've won? You think taking everything from me makes you the hero? Watch your back, Knox. I've got nothing left to lose." Knox deleted the message, his jaw tight. A moment later, his phone buzzed again, this time with a text from the security company. "Alert. V. Whitmore attempted to access property through Garden Gate. Security advised her of restraining order." She left but appeared intoxicated. Martinez appeared at his elbow, reading the text over his shoulder. "Want me to send a patrol car by?" "No." Knox's voice was cold. "But I think it's time I paid the Red Line a visit. End this before she does something we'll all regret. Want backup? This isn't police business." "Not yet." He turned to the observatory room, where Alara was still explaining constellations to Dr. Taylor. "Can you stay with her? I need to handle something." Martinez nodded. "Just try not to make more work for my department, okay?" Knox straightened his tie, a gesture that had become almost symbolic, the physical manifestation of bringing order to chaos. "I never make messes, detective. I clean them up." The Red Lion's neon sign buzzed and flickered against the darkening sky, casting sickly red shadows across the cracked parking lot. Knox adjusted his tie, still in his work suit, armor against the seediness surrounding him, and checked his phone one last time, done with the project. Alara had texted. "Detective Martinez says my star charts are museum quality. Excellent work, Princess. I'll be home soon. Can we test the new telescope? Mars is visible tonight." His reply took careful consideration. "If I'm not back by 8, have Dr. Taylor help you set up. But wait for me before the final alignment." He slipped the phone into his pocket and pushed open the Red Lion's heavy door. The smell hit him first. Stale beer, cheaper whiskey, and desperation. A far cry from the elegant cocktail parties Vivian used to host, the bartender Marcus, Knox presumed, caught his eye and nodded toward a corner booth. There sat Vivian, designer dress wrinkled, makeup smeared, surrounded by a small audience of bar regulars who filmed with their phones while she waved Alara's school photo. "My baby," she slurred, touching the picture with trembling fingers. "You took my baby. My perfect little girl, Vivian." Knox's voice cut through the murmuring crowd. "You're making a spectacle of yourself." She spun to face him, almost falling from her seat. Well, the perfect father himself. Her laugh was bitter, broken. "Come to gloat? Come to stop you from embarrassing yourself further." He plucked Alara's photo from her unsteady hands. "Though I suspect that ship has sailed, give that back." She lunged for the picture, but Knox easily stepped aside. "It's all I have left of her. Whose fault is that?" The crowd's phones tracked their exchange eagerly. Someone whispered, "That's him, the husband from the videos. You did this to me." Vivian's voice rose hysterically. "Took everything, my home, my friends, my reputation. Even my own parents won't speak to me." No. Knox's voice could have frozen the cheap whiskey in her glass. "You did this to yourself? Every choice, every betrayal, every moment you put drugs and sex above our daughter's safety, those were your decisions." "I made mistakes. I'm only human." "Mistakes?" He stepped closer, voice dropping dangerously low. "You brought a violent criminal into our home. You left our daughter alone in a motel room while you got high. You mocked her interests, neglected her care, and exposed her to your depravity. Those aren't mistakes, Vivian. Those are choices. The Foundation Board, they're hypocrites." She grabbed her drink, sloshing liquid over the rim. "Half of them buy cocaine from the same dealers. But they act so righteous, so pure. Is that why you started dealing?" Knox's question silenced the crowd. "Detective Martinez showed me Kincaid's plea deal testimony. You weren't just buying drugs. You were supplying them, using our joint accounts to fund your operation." Vivian's face went pale. "Royce is lying. The bank records don't lie." Knox's smile was arctic. "Every transaction at the Red Lion, every cash withdrawal, every payment to your distributors. Did you think I wouldn't find out? I'm a financial analyst, Vivian. Following money trails is what I do. I can change." Tears streak your mascara. "I'll go to rehab, take the parenting classes, whatever you want. Just let me see her." The court already gave you that option 3 months ago. Knox's face showed no emotion. "Have you started the programs? Attended a single counseling session?" Her silence was answer enough. "That's what I thought." He pocketed Alara's photo. "You don't want to change, Vivian. You want everyone to feel sorry for you, to see you as the victim. Poor, betrayed wife. Grieving mother." His smile was deadly. "But we both know what you really are." "And what's that?" Her chin lifted defiantly. "A narcissist who got caught. Nothing more." "I'll fight you." She grabbed his arm as he turned to leave. "I'll tell everyone what a cold, controlling bastard you are. How you drove me to Royce." "Go ahead." He removed her hand like it was something dirty. "Tell them. Show them. Let them see exactly who you are. A drunk in a bar crying about the family she destroyed, blaming everyone but herself." The crowd's phones captured every word, every gesture. Tomorrow, these videos would join the others circulating online. Another nail in the coffin of Vivian Aldridge's social life. "I loved you once," she whispered. "No." Knox's voice was empty of emotion. "You loved what I represented. Status, security, respectability. But you never loved me. And you certainly never loved our daughter." He turned to leave, then paused. "The restraining order is still in effect. Next time you pull a stunt like this, I'll have you arrested. Stay away from us, Vivian. You've done enough damage." Outside, the autumn wind had picked up, carrying the first hint of winter's bite. Knox loosened his tie, letting the cold air clear his head. His phone buzzed with another text from Alara, got the telescope aligned perfectly. "Mars looks amazing tonight." That a smile touched his lips as he typed back. "Save some celestial wonders for me." Almost home, the drive back was quiet, city lights twinkling like earthbound stars. Knox thought about the changes these past months had brought. The house felt lighter now, cleaner. No more secrets, no more lies, no more walking on eggshells around Vivian's moods that he found Alara in the backyard observatory, Detective Martinez and Dr. Taylor nearby, as she made final adjustments to the telescope. Dad, the seeing conditions are perfect tonight. Her enthusiasm was contagious. We can see Mars's ice caps. Show me. He settled beside her. As she fine-tuned the alignment, Martinez caught his eye. Everything handled? Everything's finished. His tone made it clear no further questions needed above them. Mars gleamed red against the black velvet of space, a constant point in an ever-changing universe. Let Vivian rage in her bar, drowning in self-pity and cheap whiskey. Let her blame him for her downfall, curse his name to strangers that he had given Alara what she needed most: safety, stability, understanding. A home where she could pursue her passions without mockery or neglect. A father who would burn the world to protect her. Dad! Alara's voice pulled him back to the present. Think there's life on Mars? Maybe. He smiled, watching her careful notations in her observation journal. That's what science is for, discovering new possibilities. Because that's what they had now, possibilities. A future unburdened by Vivian's chaos. A chance to build something stronger, cleaner, truer. The telescope brought Mars's surface in a crisp focus, its mysteries waiting to be explored. Alara's gasp of wonder was worth more than all of Vivian's tears, all of her manipulations, all of her desperate attempts to reclaim what she'd thrown away. Beautiful, isn't it? Knox watched his daughter's face, lit by starlight and joy. Perfect, she whispered, and it was.